Fights surrounding tariffs, the war in Ukraine, and government funding are likely to take center stage among Republicans over the next 6 months. So says The Hill's Emily Brooks in her latest reporting in her newsletter, The Movement, which covers influence and debates steering politics on the right. Emily joins me now to discuss. Let's take tariffs first here. It's not a traditional Republican issue, but they are supported by the populist faction of the MAGA base. Are there still free traders inside the GOP, and are they going to fight to claw back any of that trade, that power over tariffs in the next 6 months?
I think there are a lot of Republicans who are pretty nervous about the impact of tariffs. There are, a lot of Republicans who are giving Trump and the Trump administration the space to see if they can negotiate deals with other countries and perhaps lead to some better outcomes. I think a lot of Republicans have been surprised at the projections of tariff revenue coming in and it not quite translating to drastic inflation as many have worried. But a lot of these tariffs that are supposed to kick in on August 1st have been delayed, and we haven't really felt the real impacts of that. So, if prices start going up, constituents start feeling the negative impacts of tariffs, that could be when we start to hear more Republicans in Congress pipe up about this.
We've heard from Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. He keeps saying that levying tariffs is a job of Congress. The president shouldn't be using these executive powers in that way. How widespread do you think that sentiment is within the Republican conference?
Well, I think Congress in this second Trump administration has been very much defined by Republicans acquiescing to almost everything that President Trump wants to do. So the chances that we'll see a major rebellion and Republicans calling to claw back that tariff authority seems pretty unlikely at this point. But could they do more things like raise concerns publicly? We've already seen a couple of members send out letters expressing concerns about aerospace materials, for instance, facing tariffs and that damaging the United States' ability to manufacture things in these key industries if they can't get the materials that have high tariffs. And so, more things like that, perhaps if it hits other industries, we'll hear a lot more criticism as well.
Be interesting to see what happens going into next year as the midterm elections get closer. If people feel like the tariffs are damaging the economy, that might be motivation for Republicans to speak out more on that issue. I want to ask you about Ukraine. Being against providing support to Ukraine to defend itself from Russia was a pretty popular position on the right during the 2024 campaign. Trump has kind of changed his position. Now he's going to send more weapons to Ukraine. What happened to all those America First voices who said we shouldn't be doing that?
It has been very interesting change in posture, I think, with President Trump getting, I think, very visibly frustrated that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not striking a deal to stop invading Ukraine. A ceasefire deal is just being rejected on that side. And, Trump has put sort of a time limit on the amount of time he's going to allow for more negotiations before he takes a harsher stance. And there has been pretty wide bipartisan support for a more aggressive sanctions bill against Russia that would also target countries that are using Russian resources. So that could be something that comes up if that deadline hits. But there are still a lot of Republicans who are signaling they don't really want to be part of a dispute between Ukraine and Russia, even if they do seem to be the minority right now. The loudest of those, or one of the loudest, is Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, who, by all accounts, says that she is a huge supporter of the president and the MAGA agenda, but is really warning him against doing anything, taking any sides in this dispute, which she thinks the United States should be not involved in. We'll see if that sentiment has staying power. A lot of what the MAGA movement does is follow the president's lead and instincts on things. But this really anti-interventionist sentiment has been a pretty core part of his constituency that elected him in the first place. So, if he does anything, that challenges that too much, there could be trouble.
Let's talk about government funding. The money is set to run out on September 30th. A lot of the focus so far has been on whether Democrats and Republicans will find a way to work together to avoid a government shutdown. But surely conservatives can't be satisfied with what happened with the One Big Beautiful Bill and what it's expected to do to the deficit and debt. Are they going to push for further spending cuts in the government funding package?
Yeah, this is sort of a interesting, tricky one. Traditionally, you've had some of these hardline conservatives in the House Freedom Caucus and elsewhere who have really been against bipartisan spending deals, against continuing resolutions to continue funding the government at current levels. But now, under Trump, a lot of those voices are allowing continuing resolutions to go through because they think that Office and Management and Budget Director Russ Vogt will do pocket rescissions and rescind funding and try to challenge the extent of using executive authority to withhold funds. So they're trying to, see if they can give him the space to do that, and that's why they approved a continuing resolution at the start of this year, which goes to September 30th. But then you do have members like Marjorie Taylor Greene who just came out and said she is not going to vote for another continuing resolution to continue funding the government in current levels, which were approved during the Biden administration. And there's not really a lot of time for Congress to do any sense of regular government funding or even to strike a major omnibus spending bill, which members who are concerned about the deficit would hate anyway. So things are really going to come crashing down on Republican leadership when Congress returns after the August recess. And, everybody I talk to thinks that a continuing resolution is looking more and more likely. So, can they get the votes to pass that? And can they get the Democratic support to greenlight that? Even if they try and go through a partisan process and in the House, it's not really clear that they have the votes there.
All right, Emily, thanks so much. Always interesting for to have your insight. If people back home want to follow your newsletter, they should go over to thehill.com. On the right-hand side, click on newsletter, go down and follow the movement. They can get all this information right in their inbox. For now, we'll leave it at that. Emily Brooks, thanks so much.
Thank you.